Today's episode is all about, can you actually teach your child how to read? That's what we're going to be talking about on 10 Minutes to a Better Homeschool. Hi everyone, I'm Pam Barnhill, and I have helped thousands of homeschoolers create doable systems, beat burnout, and bring more joy to their homeschool day. Welcome to episode 37 of the 10 Minutes to a Better Homeschool podcast. So the question is, can you actually teach your child to read? Is that something like you're equipped to do? Isn't that some special kind of magic that only very qualified people can accomplish? That was kind of my concern many, many years ago when I first started on this homeschool journey. And I am here to tell you that you absolutely can teach your child to read. I did it with 3 kids, some of whom were very tough to teach to read, to be quite frank about it. And you just have to keep plugging away. You just have to keep plugging away and you will eventually be successful. And you know why I know that you're eventually going to be successful? Because you, mama or dad, are not going to give up. You have a very vested interest in making sure that this child exits your homeschool as a reader in the real world. And you're going to keep doing whatever it takes to make sure that your child gets there. But let's talk for a little bit about some of the keys to successfully teaching your child to read. So the first key to teaching your child to read is to be patient with the process. Now, I'm not talking about patience in general, so don't get freaked out if you're like, I don't have a whole lot of patience. You need to cultivate patience with the process here. And the reason why this is such an important thing to talk about is because the expectation for when children learn to read has really changed over the past 60 to 70 years. So when we think back to the 1950s, and this is something that my friend Sarah McKenzie from Read Aloud Revival talks about all the time. So this is not my information, this is her information, and I'm just kind of borrowing it from her and giving it to you because it's such good stuff. Sarah tells us that, way back in the day, in the 1950s, nobody expected a child to be coming out of kindergarten knowing how to read. But gradually over the years, it's gotten to where now that is the expectation when your child leaves kindergarten that they will be reading. But the problem is, kids really haven't changed. Kids are the same as they were in the 1950s. It's not like we're breeding superhuman children now. And so the expectation itself has changed, and I'm not sure that it's necessarily a really good thing that it has. Studies show that when kids get to be about 4th grade, you really can't tell the difference between kids who learn to read early and kids who learn to read late. So don't start too early and be patient with the process. My easiest one to teach the read, we didn't actually start until he was well into 6 years old. And when I say that, that's when we started learning the sounds. Everybody else, I tried to start super early. It took them longer to learn to read. Him, I started what most people would consider super late. And he was the one who picked it up the easiest. So have patience with the process. Don't have this expectation that your child is necessarily going to be reading by the time they turn 6 years old. And it's completely normal if they're not. Now, the question a lot of times comes up, how do I know when there might be a problem? What if my child's not reading when he's 6? I would say, wait. What if my child's not reading when he's 7? Start thinking about some things, start looking for some signs. What if my child's not reading when he's 8? Then, we really want to start digging into the signs of, could there be something wrong? There might not be. Some kids, it just doesn't click until they're 8 or 9 years old, maybe even 10, and there's absolutely nothing wrong. But it doesn't hurt to look at that point. And I'll link you to an episode of the podcast I did with Mary Ann Sutherland from Homeschooling with Dyslexia, where we talked about when to know that there's a problem and what you can do about it. And I highly recommend Mary Ann's website as a resource if you think something might be going on. So patience with the process, that's number 1. Number 2 is don't make reading in your house all about learning how to read. Make sure that learning how to read is kind of the secondary thing that's going on in your house. The primary thing going on in your house that has to do with reading is making reading enjoyable. Making reading something you want to do for the rest of your life. Making reading about opening doors, entering new worlds, telling and enjoying stories and things of that nature. Reading needs to be about enjoyment and joy. It doesn't need to be about drudgery and learning to read. So like 5-10 minutes a day, especially when your child is really young, and do the reading instruction with them for just a few minutes each day. Keep it light, keep it enjoyable, build their habit of attention with it. As they get older and they can handle more, stretch it out and make it longer. My kids were always the kids who needed the short little lessons. Now, some people tell me like, my kids started to read when they were like 3 years old. And yeah, that never happened at my house. But if your kid does, go with it. Follow the lead of your child. When it comes to reading lessons, err on the side of keeping them super short. Make the bulk of what you're doing with language and literacy development every day about reading aloud to them, enjoying stories together, playing fun games with sounds and letters and things like that, and really, really having fun. But the bulk of it is in the reading aloud that you do and making stories enjoyable. So that's number 2. Now let's talk about number 3. The third key to teaching your child to read is to find a good reading program. And I really firmly believe this. Now, there are lots of good reading programs out there. You could ask friends for recommendations. You can do a little bit of research. I'm going to tell you about our very favorite reading program. And this is the one I used with all 3 of my children, from the kid who learned to read very, very easily, the kid who was kind of in between, and then the one who ended up being diagnosed with dyslexia, who eventually learned to read using this program. It took a long time. And we just did a little bit every day and chipped away at it. But this kid reads just fine now. And so our favorite reading program is All About Reading. It's one that we used from the very beginning with my second child. And then my first child, I kind of floundered around a little bit and tried a few different things, and then eventually settled on All About Reading. By the time I did, she mostly knew how to read. And one of the things I love about All About Reading is it is scripted. Now, did I read the script word for word? No, of course I didn't read the script word for word. I'm too much of a do my own thing kind of girl to do that. But I could skim the script and know exactly what it was I was supposed to be talking about and what skills I was supposed to be covering. It was also very easy to break down into those 10-minute chunks. Now, that meant that we didn't get a whole lesson done in one day, but that was completely and totally okay. We just worked on it as we could. The other thing I loved is the readers are fabulous. So often the readers that you're reading when you're learning to read are kind of ho-hum, but these were funny from the very first book. My kids will still tell you that they love Fox in a Box. And it's just the joy of the illustrations and the way that they put the words together to make these fun little stories, all the way up to the level 4 reader. And I'll never forget the day when my son closed the level 4 reader and looked at me and said, "When do I get to start level 5?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, there is no level 5. And he was legitimately disappointed that he wasn't going to be able to go on and read another set of readers. So many things to love about All About Reading. Another thing is they have placement tests on their website. And if you need a little bit of help with placement, if you're unsure of where your child should be, they have a phone line that you can call and you can actually speak to one of their experts. And they're very happy to help you with placements or any problems that you're having with the curriculum. They have support on their website, and they also have that support by phone. So do go and check out All About Reading. I have a very extensive review that I did a number of years ago, but it's still really relevant. I'll link that one for you in the show notes and in the description down below so that you can have a look at that review yourself. But it's one that I highly recommend. And then we paired it with the All About Spelling program as well. So there you go. 3 tips to teaching your child to read in your homeschool. You can do it. I did it. Lots of homeschoolers have done it. You can absolutely do it too. I know you can. All right, I'll be back again next week, and we're going to be talking about how you can be more efficient in your homeschool, which is really important because time is finite. Or our time is anyway. You know what I mean. See you next week.